Hi, I'm
Dante.
and I am in desperate need of a clock-headed avatar so that I don't get copyright strike by our Lord and Savior Kim Ji-hoon. Welcome to Doomspire Defense, a game that's like if TDS and the Battle Bricks had a child. But it turns out that SCP Tower Defense and Battle Bricks had an affair and added masteries for certain towers. Anyways, it's a tower defense game. What do you expect from it? You place down towers, off, and come back later to upgrade your towers. If an enemy enters your base, you die. However, unlike most tower defense games, you aren't fighting zombies. You are fighting NPCs who have families and loved ones sent in by the respective spire to try and invade your spire. This means that the game is likely taking place during this game's equivalent of World War III, and the other spires are the Axis powers trying to take over your spire and claim it for themselves. That would explain why green mode is so easy. It's the Italians. Speaking of modes, enemies in this game aren't that annoying compared to shit like TDX, but some have different traits. There's the basic stuff that you have in tower defense games, such as the enemies who can fight back, the enemies who refuse to get stunned, and the enemies that require your towers to have red wristbands in order to see them. But then there's the annoying stuff. There's flying enemies that require your towers to have a certain amount of range, or higher if you want to hit them. This wouldn't be a problem if they didn't appear in the early waves, and some of the best early game towers happen to have piss poor range. There's also the bullet shield, which reduces the amount of damage that towers with guns do, as well as the purple shield, which allows enemies to be immune to lasers, explosions, and magic. Luckily, there's no enemy with both. Then there's the base destroyers. These guys will one-tap your base if you leak them no matter what. They could be knocking on death's back door and still take out the base with 200 health. And finally, the most annoying trait ever. Zero cash. These enemies won't give you cash upon shooting and killing them. This is meant to prevent infinite money firing by using enemies such as the spawn. But for some all reason, the devs decided to put it on normal enemies who didn't do anything, like the Slate skins. Luckily, there isn't any final boss with this trait. Yet. Each mode has at least one mini-boss and one final boss. Some mini-bosses end up becoming normal enemies, just like in the hit game, Ultra Kill. For green mode, there's the Dragon Slayer. He's the first mini-boss and he's piss easy. He has two abilities, Stab and Block. From the name, I'm sure you can tell what they do. He only has 1.5 thousand health and spawns in wave 20, so you should be fine even if you only have to start towers. Swordmaster. He's the final boss on green mode, and he's even easier than you expected. You get to prepare for 30 waves, and he only has 10,000 health and 3 abilities, 2 of which do the exact same thing. Whirlwind and Sword Slam stun your towers, while retreating has him jump back a few stuns and to use his subject as a meat shield. Not a bad idea to be honest. Beginning yellow mode, there's the Juggernaut. He's the Dozer from Payday 2, but he's treated like Maurice from Ultra Kill. He appears on wave 18 and can stun one tower at a time, and since he's in full armor, he himself can't be stunned. However, in the following waves, he will end up being spammed until Road Rager. 2 waves after Juggernaut, this man will appear. He has 4.5 thousand health and has 3 abilities. Vroom vroom. It's raining motorbikes and book throwing. He also has an entire extended family and a dedicated modifier that triggers basically a side mode, but we'll get into that later. General. He spawns at wave 30 and has 3 times the health of Swordmaster. He has 3 abilities. He can bomb one tower and kill it while stunning the other towers around it. He can call for backup, but the backup is... it's 3 fucking Juggernauts. He also steals $100 from you and does 40 damage to your base, so it's functionally worthless because you can't kill your base. Mechanical Rager. He's just a robotic version of Road Rager, but he has less health than General, so he's kinda useless. There's no point in talking about him. Exponent. The final boss of yellow mode. He's like if you took Eradicator from TDX and turned him into a Battle Bricks boss. He has 5 abilities. Artillery Barrage. It stuns people. Direct Hit. It stuns people. Aerial Slam. It's like a reverse version of Swordmaster's Retreating. It stuns people, but it sends him forward. At half health, he summons Admiral Mike, which is just General with more health. At 15,000 health, he will do a Sisyphus Prime and before crawling like a toddler and taking less damage? How does that work? If I crawl, does that mean I can get shot in the head and live? Beginning red mode, we have Mad Paintballer. This man spawns at wave 10 and targets the most expensive tower with his gun, and is able to throw a paint grenade which blinds you, stuns you, and makes their towers have less range. Mad Scientist. He only has 25,000 health, but one of his abilities is to kill a tower and heal 10,000 health. His gun also turns your tower into an apple, which stuns him for an entire minute. Bloxer. Probably the most boring boss in the entirety of the game. He appears on wave 40, is immune to bullet damage, and has 4 abilities. Fiery Slash. It stuns people. Bazooka Shot, it stuns people. Rocket Jump, just a better version of Swordmaster's retreating ability. And the Medium Pot, healing a quarter of his health and making him go faster. Builder's Club, the second last boss of Red Mode. They have 6 abilities. Build allows him to build super spawns and telewarps. He can also do a medic TF2 and overheal his allies while debuffing your towers at the same time. Delete kills 5 of your towers while stunning the rest. Drag gives him the powers of Boogie Woogie and swaps the position of enemies, allies, towers, and even yourself. For some reason. Nuke is... The name is Nuke, I'm sure you can tell what it does. And their final move.
Kyoshiki Murasaki.
And last but not least, Mr. Doombringer himself, the final boss of Red Mode. Now, remember that Sisyphus joke I made earlier with X-Minute? Well, I'm not joking this time. This man literally uses Sisyphus Prime voice lines, even for his intro. He's rocking 666,000 health, and has a huge hammer. Feels like he's trying to overcompensate for something. Just like Builder's Club, he has 6 abilities. Termination, it kills people. Smiting, it kills people. Rock Cannon, it kills people. Unholy Summoning, calls for backup, but like General, the backup is basically worthless. Reposition, does the Joestar secret technique and runs away while killing your towers. And his final ability, Final Push. He stabs himself with a brick, turns 144p, and becomes silly built. What? What do you mean they changed the music? Oh motherfuck! The towers in this game range from being able to shred through enemies like confetti to being so bad, you might as well be shooting confetti. Just like any sensible person, I'm putting them all into a tier list. This also includes masteries and their mastered form. If you don't want to watch through this part, skip to the timestamp on screen. Battler. It's the basic tower. Gets the job done for early game and is practically useless elsewhere. It's really outclassed, even with mastery. So both go into C tier. Slingshot. Good early game tower, but you can just get 2,550 bucks and buy Rocketeer, which is way better. D tier. BB Gunner, the mastered form of Slingshot. It's really good for early defense and can target air units. It's also able to do a Helldiver's and call in for backup, though the backup is temporarily, effectively giving it a 3 for the price of 1. Still, outclassed. B tier. Sword Master, good damage, cheap cost, able to parry stuns and deal damage when it gets stunned. With mastery is even better, but without mastery is not that good. C tier without mastery and B tier with it. Paintballer, without mastery he's like Slingshot, pretty bad, but with mastery gets a slow ability which moves him from the D tier to the C tier. Bomber and Freezer, I never see these guys ever get used. There's so much better options for crowd control. The dev should give them an evolution. D tier. Prowler, he's basically TDS Trapper. His kit is just to prevent leaks. However, there is something known as getting good and not leaking. D tier. Baller. Literally useless, the devs buff it every update yet it still sucks ass. F tier. Rocketeer. Rocketeer's cheap crowd control, has good damage, good price, and is overall a reliable guy. B tier. With mastery he moves to A tier. Mr. Tix. He's the farm of this game. I think it goes without saying that he goes into the EX tier. The game would literally not work without him. Tycoon, Mr. Tix's mastery form. He gives an economy buff to the nearby farms, but the Tycoon itself is expensive as f***. You also have to click on it and claim the money, like an actual Tycoon. It has better late game money, but much worse early game money. A tier. Arsenal, my favorite early defender. Cheap early defense, and at level 2 becomes arguably the best early defense tower ever, but he falls off really bad in the later levels. His gimmick is that he has 2 ranges and 2 towers in one, a single target long range guy and a rapid fire shorter range guy. With masteries he can make all arsenals on the map target one guy, which is pretty f***ing useless in my opinion. A tier. Teamers, Arsenal's mastery form. Better in every way except for early game. It's like getting one of those bundle deals off Temu. You got the budget Hyper Laser, the budget Heavy Gunner, and the budget Rocketeer, doing the funny Jujutsu jumping against their former allies. S tier. Ray Gunner, pretty basic burst fire tower, at least for the first 3 levels. At level 4 it becomes the electric pea shooter from PvZ2 and gets a lot of piercing damage. Pretty mid. B tier. 6 shooter. You expect the man based off of a cowboy to be a single target, but surprisingly, he's the crowd control. He can lock onto 6 enemies at a time and shoot them all in quick succession. Luckily, unlike another cowboy who does something similar, he's not named after a registered offender. Master doesn't change too much. B tier. Moving on to the advanced towers, we have Spawn. Welcome to Tower Offense Simulator, where you spawn enemies on the track and you fight them. Similar to Battle Cast, some just walk straight in and take damage, others stack up and kill. At the final level, you can spawn Swordmaster. He has 7,000 health and 2 abilities, just like the boss fight. Sadly, Spawn is outshined and outclassed by his older, mastered brother, Barax. B tier. Barax takes Spawn and jack everything up by 5. The units Barax spawns can stack up. Barax itself spawns a multitude of different people. You have men with pistols, men with A16s, men with shotguns, men with snipers, and women with mortars. At the final level, Barax can spawn up to 2 miniature versions of Exponent with miniguns called Executed. Don't worry, the final upgrade does not cost $400,000 to fire every second. S tier. Pianist. Sadly, this pianist can't destroy 90% of a city's population and kill a man's wife and unborn child. Instead, he stuns enemies by causing pianos to rain from the sky. Man, what is this game's obsession with things falling from the sky? This guy used to stun for way longer, but after some nerfs, he is now a shell of his former self. A tier. Boombox. He's the commander of this game. Boosts fire rate. Has an ability that boosts fire rate even more. Where else is he meant to be? S+ tier. Rockstar. Boombox but quirkier. Instead of boosting fire rate, she boosts your damage by 50%. And for some godforsaken reason, they thought that they should give her the ability to do damage. S+ tier. Heavy Gunner. It's the heavy weapons guy. Good damage, and he has a fire rate that ramps up quickly over time. At the final level, it gives him a goddamn transformer mech, and gives him soda cans that functions as rockets, which gives him good AoE damage too. S tier. Galactic Gunner. Heavy Gunner's mastered form. It's just Heavy Gunner, but single target damage instead of AoE. You can place up to 12 of these guys, set them all to strongest, and watch the boss get shredded into a fine red mist. At level 3, he gets a personal shield, which procs every few shots. However, all this comes at a cost. Literally, he's super expensive to upgrade. A tier. Machinery. It's like if you combined Accelerator and Engineer. He fires a single target, high DPS laser that can overheat. However, upon overheating, he builds a sentry. These sentries can also spawn on the road and can't do contact damage. However, like Clash Royale buildings, they slowly lose health. Luckily, that health can be restored upon reaching level 4, in which he spawns a dispenser. With Mastery, the dispenser can give nearby towers a shield, which protects them from stun, so he can do basically every role at once. S+ tier. Hyper Laser. He has a gun. The gun fires a big laser, and the big laser does a lot of damage. He's also rather cheap for something that you can spam 18 times. Now, I would put him in S+ tier or S tier, but he has a magic bullet skin, and since I love their fry shoots, he goes into the EX tier out of bias. Shielder. He's the tank of this game. Protects your units from minor stunts such as mini-bosses and enemies. At max level, he begins shouting at the top of his lungs to get the enemy's attention, as well as getting a damage boost. This also helps protect other towers even more. S tier. Wizard. Just like the one in Clash Royale, Wizard in this game sucks and is outclassed by literally everything else. They should give this guy an Evo. C tier. Corsair.
Being a pirate is a right to be. Do what you want cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
Yo ho matey, this man gives you money every time you shoot someone. At level 3, he gets a cone AoE from one of those trash bootleg anime tower defense games and can hit up to 3 people. He also has an ability that gives more money depending on how many enemies you hit, but 99% of the time, all the enemies are dead before you can fully use it. B tier. Terminal Garage. Military base but Doomspire Defense. You can summon trucks and tanks at max level, as well as calling in an airstrike that does good damage. Recently, it received some buffs, but it's still not the best. A tier for being outclassed by Barax. General. Boy, where can I begin? Each nuke does 7,500 damage, and the final upgrade drops 3. That's 22,500 damage in one attack. And that's not even factoring buffs from other towers. Oh, and he has full map range, gives a range buff, gives you money, and summons paratroopers, all for the price of approximately 3 student loans. EX tier. Other than the 3 main modes, there's also 4 side modes and modifiers. I'll quickly go through the modifiers since the script is long enough. Takes loan, start with an extra 500 bucks. Armored Spire, increase base health by 50. Lazy enemies, everyone is now 2 steps behind and moves 15% slower. Haunted, every once in a while you get FNAF jump scared. Cola Rush, everyone has the babyface blaster and runs 15% faster. No supplies, BTD6 half cash. Battler's Curse, BTD6 golden balloons, but it gives you literally nothing for beating it. Deathmatch, you're now playing TDX. Doombringer's Blessing, all bosses and mini bosses have 50% more health. If you beat red mode with it, you get a cool tag. True Bloxer, set your base HP to 1. The worst one of all, Geared Up. All standard enemies have double the health, and you also get half ticks. Grandmaster mode, this modifier forces red mode. Disables masteries, makes all bosses have 50% more health, makes enemies faster, and gives your towers a health bar. Beating this mode gives you another cool tag. Side modes in this game are unique modes with their own cast of enemies and gimmicks, usually following one theme. They also give you a tower along with it, starting with Biker's Challenge. This is meant to be a modifier, but it's basically a side mode. You have 20 waves, and every 5 waves a new boss spawns. These bosses include Road Rager, Road Rager's best friend, Road Rager's child, Robotic Road Rager, and Road Rager in the average build a boat for treasure, Boat. Beating this gives you Brute Biker. It's a really mid tower. It has high DPS, but it's super expensive, as well as being a melee tower. It has an ability that does 1000 damage every minute, so that's basically a light tickle in the endgame. He can do a slam and throw a spike every few attacks, but still, B tier. Undead Coming. This entire mode is a PvZ reference. The gimmick here is that the air is toxic, which means we're probably somewhere in Chernobyl. You have to put your towers near this Italian guy because apparently he's from the red team to make sure that your towers don't die of asbestos poisoning. The final boss is literally Zomboss, including the music and his attacks. I mean, here, just have a listen. This gives you Survivalist. He acts like medic in TDS, but with a gun that can actually do decent amounts of damage. If I had made this video before the Halloween update, he would be in S tier, but now that Shielder exists, he's in C tier. Bloxer's Dream. This side mode has 2 modes, Normal mode and Nightmare mode. Nightmare just gives you a cool skin and more rewards. The gimmick for Bloxer's Dream is that every 10 waves the theme of the enemies will change, starting from Escape Era 51, then it becomes that 1 pixel gun 3D boss everyone was scared of as a child. After that, it's some nerd named Yorick who quizzes you mid-match, and if you guess wrong, he lowers your social credit. The final boss is John Doe himself. If anybody remembers him, you're a real one. Beating this gives you Headless Jack. I'm putting him in the undecided tier since I have never used this guy. Maybe if he was riding a headless horse named Dullahan, I'd give him a chance. Incident. This mode doesn't have any special gimmicks. The enemies and bosses are just giant stat sticks. This entire mode is the embodiment of random bullshit go, and the only notable thing about it is that one of the bosses outright steals all your farms. No other towers, just your farms. The final boss also has less health than some of the previous bosses for some reason. Beating this mode gives you the best early game tower in the game, Moderator. Basically, how it works is that if Moderator hits 1 enemy, up to 12 enemies of the same type get stunned, even from across the map. And since he stuns for 2 seconds at level 4 and has a 1 second fire rate, if there's a strong enemy in the field without stun immunity, Moderator will show them the true Sisyphus experience. He also gets an ability that insta-kills enemies below 2000 health. With Mastery, it doubles to 4000 health. S tier. Anyways, that's my final rankings for all of the towers. If you disagree with anything on the list, feel free to comment about it so that I can grow this channel more. Congrats, you're in the endgame. You probably own every tower and mastery at this point, as well as beating every mode and side mode in the game. The only thing left for you to do is to get skins, since grinding bucks in this game sucks, and the conversion rate is somehow even worse. If you somehow haven't beaten every mode and you need help, just go to the Discord server. This game isn't too big, so there's hardly any guides for the modes and side modes. But hey, if you're a Project Moon fan like me, you're in luck, because for some reason, general chat becomes Project Moon chat very often. Anyways, that's all from me. Like and subscribe and comment down any games you want me to do a video on. I was originally gonna make a script for a Type Soul video, talking about each of the progressions, but the game fucking died, so I scrapped that. Anyways, have a nice day or night, and I'll see you whenever I stop procrastinating.